Okay, so if you're ready, we're gonna start.
I'm
Okay?
ready. I'm
All
ready.
right, and let's do it.
All
And hey
right.
there, and welcome to the Liquid Mind Spot. My name is Enrico Bankier. I'm super excited tonight, or today in the States, because we have a fantastic episode. You know, here at Liquid Minds, we're all about breaking down barriers. We love tech, and we love to stay curious all the time. And our guest today, I think, embodies exactly all these values and much more. She is an advisor and fractional HR executive with a pretty impressive 25 years of experience in HR leadership, and especially in industry with deskless employees, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So her passion is for enhancing people experience, diving into generative AI, and I think ChatGPT is included in that. And revolutionizing HR tech is nothing short of inspiring for her. She's also the co-founder of Disrupt HR and HR Rebooted. Sounds great, and has been a keynote speaker on everything from technology, leadership to branding and HR. Oh, and she won a ton of awards. Including the 2022 Boston HR Council Speaker of the Year and the OnCon Icon Human Resources Professional Awards for 4 years running. Whoa. So I'm so happy that we can speak again after our meeting and encounter on stage in Romania at the Everything HR convention. So it's time to give a warm welcome to Tracie Sponenberg. How are you, Tracie?
Hi.
How are you
Hi,
today?
Enrico. I'm great. It's so nice to see you again. I had so much fun with you in Romania. So it's nice to be seeing you, even though it's through a screen this time.
Yes. Okay. We are, for our listener, we are a world apart, all right? I am in Italy, Tracie is in US, so there is these things about half a globe. So let's start and tell us all about your journey in HR leadership, okay? You have a lot of passion for aligning, it looks like, people strategy with business strategy. What does that mean?
So I started as a very, very traditional HR leader. So I started working in the field in the mid 90s, and I came out of college and then immediately went and got my graduate degree and learned the way HR was at the time, which was to lead by compliance. So that's how I led, and that was the driving factor for me for really a couple of decades. And then I started learning a little bit more, like you mentioned, getting more curious, and really realized that HR's role wasn't to, enforce policies and to be the company police. It was really to be coaches, consultants, and guides for the people, and to help the people grow and therefore help the business grow. And so I really embraced that mindset over the past almost decade or so. And for me, aligning the people strategy with the business strategy is making sure, first of all, to understand the business. And I certainly didn't early in my career. And I think a lot of HR leaders don't. So you have to understand the business first, understand what's important to the business, understand their strategies. And then everything that you do in HR should be driving to support those. So there are little things that fall underneath those strategies, but they should all be aligning with the company business strategy. Not because
Makes
you think
sense.
something's fun or what have you, but it should all
Yeah,
be aligning with the company strategy.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Before we go on, I noticed something, and I that in your LinkedIn CV, maybe you don't remember, but you put the adjective introverted. All right.
Mm,
So
yeah.
this is very interesting. I mean, in your LinkedIn presentation, you have an introverted person. Do you have any special remarks on that? Because I'm so curious because you don't look like an introverted person, whatever that
Yeah.
means. Okay. So
Yeah, so
why
so
is there?
if I had a dollar for every time somebody said you can't be an introvert. So it's there because I want to remind people that even if you're very, very quiet, and even if you need to recharge by being alone, and even if you prefer to be alone and have a hard time being in crowds, you can do these things. So you can speak, you can lead, you can, it's harder for me. So I'll describe it to you like if I go into a party and I
Yeah.
don't know anybody, I can and will probably walk right out, or I'll stand against the wall and wait for somebody to come up to me. And it's very, very uncomfortable. Even going to that dinner that we went to in Romania was
Oh,
very
come on.
uncomfortable because I didn't know anyone. I know, but nobody usually notices because even talking about it with you, I'll get red. I'll turn red. But nobody usually notices because I've gotten very good at hiding that over the years. So I can be in those situations, but it's hard for me.
Oh, that's interesting because as a public speaker, you know that it's you don't find these things all around.
No.
When you talking with public speaking coaches and everything. So the introvert is kind of but it's a very interesting point of view what you said. Yes, and I totally
Yeah.
agree with that. Now, so let's go to the other things that grab my attention, which is
Yeah.
I am an old geek. I love tech. You have no idea. So I love tech, video games, And you look like it's in your CVs. You're passionate about AI, and this
Hmm.
is so important right now because there is this big discussion going on everywhere, pretty much. All right. So, do you really see these tools transforming the HR landscape?
I see them transforming everything, really, and everything, right? And so, I mean, AI has been around, generative AI has been around since I think the 1960s in one form, so it's
Yes.
not really new. I think what is new in the past few years is the ease of using it in our daily lives, and what we're seeing more and more and more every day, and it getting into videos now, and so that is new. But I see it transforming everything. And you talked about my passions, and those are my passion. My real passion, though, is taking HR leaders who were like I was and bringing them forward and helping them get the knowledge that they need to really succeed. And the speaking, I love speaking, but I'm not a full-time public speaker. Did I just say I love speaking? That was weird. That might be the first time I said that. I love
Yeah.
what,
You love
yeah.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that might be the first time. It's hard, but you can love something that's hard, right? And so, but really bringing people forward and watching them get the tools that they need to succeed and watching them. And so that's why I'm passionate. Part of the reasons I'm passionate about that, because I think AI is super transformative and I use it every single day in all kinds of different ways, but primarily as a thought partner. So if I'm stuck on something, I'll have one of three different things that I use every day and kind of chat with it. I mean, I'll certainly call a friend, but I'll do that with AI as well. And it's excellent for research, particularly perplexed. So we could talk for hours on this, but yes, I think it's
Yeah.
transforming HR now. I think it will continue to, and it's going to transform business.
In this liquid mind spot that comes from my experience in trying to have people not building walls into the big corporation that we work in as consultants, like they keep building walls. Don't you think that AI is another of these walls sometimes? Because don't you have the impression that when you talk about AI, some of the people they get tense? I mean,
Mm,
they little get tense a little bit, not like
yeah.
oh.
Oh, yeah.
And I see my company too. What are your thoughts when you see people getting tense about AI?
So when I speak, and you saw it with like a really practical approach, I take a really practical approach and I try to speak to the person who's scared or who's nervous or who's lonely or something. And with I think if you demystify that, so if you talk about it, like I talk a lot about how I use it, and people go, "Oh, I didn't know you could find a recipe or have it find, a recipe." And that's not scary for people. So if you get people using ChatGPT, for example, with I have broccoli and chicken in the refrigerator. What's a recipe I can make in under 30 minutes? Then that's something they can use in their daily lives, and it's not at all scary. And then you try something different, and then you just escalate it from there. So you start slowly and get people using it in a way that's very comfortable for them.
And I know how is the feeling here in Europe. How is the feeling on the other side of the ocean about this? The general feeling in corporation when you go into companies. What do you think the feeling is?
Think there's a mix of excitement and fear, and I know we were talking about it at my last company, which I just left a few months ago, and I'm still working with. There's a mix of that and fear, and I think, at least in the U.S. anyway, one of the biggest challenges, it's not necessarily overcoming that fear, though that is a challenge. It's what are the ethics and how do we use it, and how do we
Yeah.
what parts of it can we use and who uses it and how and what, I think the early on the solution was just to block access, but that's not the solution. So how can we use it responsibly and ethically? I think that's the biggest challenge.
Do you remember? Maybe not because you are so much younger than I. So, but yes, you are. So, do you remember when companies used to block Facebook?
Oh,
Or
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not that young, Enrico. I
I
remember
mean,
that. I used to do that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for
yes,
sure.
block Facebook, like the witch hunting, like what are you doing?
Yeah,
You're looking Facebook.
right,
So
right.
that's interesting. Okay, so it looks like that there is a well-being a well-being dimension on what you do in HR,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So it looks like
Yeah.
that linking well-being with organizational health is what you do. So what is the connection between these things about well-being and and what we call organizational health, which is a little
Yeah.
bit more corporate? What do you think it is, the linking about the word well-being?
So it's pretty simple. We've known for, I mean, the earliest studies I think were a couple hundred years ago. I mean, studies used loosely, right? We've known for hundreds of years that there's a link between employee well-being and organizational health or organizational success if you go
Yeah.
further, right? And we've just been really bad about it, right? And COVID, I think, shined a new light on that. And, you cannot come to work super unhealthy and do your best. You just can't. And that health extends to physical health, mental health, and we're seeing in the United States, at least, and I think this extends worldwide, a real mental health crisis. We're seeing, companies are seeing Family Medical Leave Act in the United States is requests skyrocket for mental health reasons. They're seeing short-term disability applications skyrocket for mental health reasons. And so people are not well. And while everybody has responsibility for their own mental health, organizations have a responsibility to at least provide resources so people can take control and can access those. And responsibility, yes, but it's also good for business. And wouldn't you want workers coming in happy and healthy? I mean, that's idealistic, right? But it's good for business if you help connect people to resources.
It is. And I have a question.
Yeah.
You know, I've been around for so long, and in so many companies, I have listened to the two words like people first, right? Okay, So once upon a time, there was this, paper first or production first if you are in a plant and in a fab. So people first approach has been around for a long time. It sounds great, but to be very honest and very transparent, I don't always see people first in companies that they claim the people first act. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so what do you think it really means, people first? Okay, so what is it?
Yeah.
Because I have my own ideas on these things, but it's so important to discuss it with other experts.
So you're 100% right. I think we see a lot of companies using that because it's been a popular
Yeah.
phrase for years, and I use it a lot myself, right? For me, and this is a pretty straightforward approach, it means you put people above everything else, including profits. That's easy to say, hard to do. But in the best companies, putting people first and putting people before profits lead to better profits, right? If you truly do the right things for your people. Now, this doesn't mean what everybody wants, just say yes to everything. This means truly have the best interests of your people in mind and truly help them have the tools to succeed and grow within their careers, and just like really be good human beings. Um, that's what it means to me. And that is so easy to say and so hard to do.
Yeah. Let me ask you if you agree on something that I've been feeling for a long time.
Yeah.
Management, HR management, even production or even in finance. I've come to the conclusion that managing is not so difficult. It's not nuclear science. It's
Hmm.
not it's doing is doing the right things with the right way in the right moment with the right people in the right way. But the right way sometimes is not so difficult. Now,
Right.
what I've seen and that's why we founded this liquid thing. It's like I've seen, hey, relax a little bit, and this is easier than you think it is. Even problem solving sometimes it's easier than everybody think it is. I don't know about the States, but I think that in Europe we overstate and oversize everything. I mean, sometimes they call us a consultant, but by the way, I'm very happy they call us because that's our job. But sometimes it's really is this big a problem? It doesn't look so big. Now they go
Yep.
back to people a lot. Do you think do you think that we could do simpler thing in corporation to solve problem?
Oh yeah, I think we overcomplicate things a lot for
Oh
sure. And
yes,
and I think
yes,
there's a difference between leading
yes,
and managing. And you manage processes and lead people. I mean, that is oversimplifying things, but you manage processes and you lead people. And I think often when we put people in management positions, they either don't have the skills or sometimes don't even have the interests. And I have lost count at how many times over the course of my career somebody was promoted because they were the next in line or they were the best at X, Y, and Z, and then they were thrust into this role that they weren't ready for and not given the tools to succeed. So I just had this conversation with somebody earlier today. Like, I think like 80% of company problems boil down to that individual leader. And that's a pretty bold statement, but really it's the company's responsibility. But so many problems with individuals, whether it be performance or whether it be, somebody is just a problem person. It may not be that person. It may be the leader and a lack of training and a lack of, listening ability and so forth. So we overcomplicate what I think should be a pretty simple thing.
yes, and that's why I'm so eager to take all the people that I can and start like a movement of please, please. This is not because again, I have this double soul. No, I was raised in that part of the world, and I moved to Europe. So sometimes in Europe, overcomplicating things it's connected to the seriousness of people. Like complicated things, you're very serious,
Mm,
okay? And if you're very
mm.
serious, must be very good. And I've come that practical is not a joke, but it's sometimes it's really let it go a little bit. Let it go a little bit. Managing people is difficult, but it can be done. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's easier. Now, tell me something because you in your CV you have disrupt HR.
Mm.
Okay,
Mhm.
disrupt is a very interesting word. All
Mhm.
right, and I have my own way to describe it, but I am very interested in what is your word for disrupt HR. And the other one is HR
Yeah.
rebooted, which is another
Yeah.
interesting thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'm
tell
happy
me
to
more
talk
a
about
little
those.
bit
I'm
of this
involved
disrupt
in
HR and HR
several
rebooted.
similar type of things. Um, yeah, several similar type of things. So Disrupt HR is actually an international, I describe it as a movement that I founded the local organization. And the whole intent, they're kind of like mini TED Talks. And so the whole intent of that is to shake up the world of HR and bring new ways of thinking and bring in speakers they have 5 minutes and they have to blow everybody's mind. They have to talk about some sort of new idea or an old idea with a new spin. and bring that forward and try to change the way we think about HR in the world of work. And I got involved in HR Rebooted, which was a podcast and a project I had with my friend that I'm hoping will reinvigorate at some point to do something similar, reboot HR through talking to people about new ways of thinking. And then I'm also involved in hacking HR, which is similar and is an alternative to some of the more traditional HR organizations that um, really pushes the idea of, you shouldn't be practicing HR like you were in 1997. You should be
Please. Yeah.
constantly curious. So you can
Yes.
see a theme where I gravitate now toward things that shake up the traditional and challenge our ways of thinking about how we work.
Yes. And sometimes what I think is I would love to find another name. I
For
believe in
HR.
names. Yeah, it's it looks like that. It's old. I don't know how to
It
say, but
is.
it's or
You're
it's
right.
or it's been beaten, or it's been misused, or
Yeah.
whatever. But it's the HR, because when when you talk with somebody and says, what do you do in the company? He says, well, sometimes they see that you see them. They say, well, we are HR. Like I had the feeling sometimes that most of the companies, most of the people in the companies, especially the big ones, they have no idea what HR does.
Yep.
Okay, they don't know, or they can't figure it out. So I don't know. Maybe we can start a movement that says, let's find another name for HR. Okay.
So we've got it in the States. So in I changed my, and this may not be the end, but changed my team to a people team.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen in the States anyway is more modern companies who approach HR differently are changing to people. And the ones that you see that are more legacy are HR. I still use HR because I want to bring those people forward. And you
Yeah.
don't have to change the title, but I have a friend named Matt McFarland, and he talks a lot about like, let's have HR and let's have people, and let's leave the compliance and the paperwork with HR,
The HR.
and let's bring everything else
Yes.
toward people. And
Yes.
I kind of like that approach.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Now you have a lot of awards, and yeah. I mean, what do you think about that? What they mean to you?
Um, so it's funny. I am very, as you know, and you can see me starting to get red. So I am quiet and I'm an introvert, and I just kind of kept to myself for the majority of my career and did my job, and I think did pretty well for the people in my companies and for my companies, and just really changed. And part of it started with speaking. I just started speaking 6 or 7 years ago, and I fell into it by accident. I thought I was going to die the first time I got up there.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, okay, I can not only do this, but I think I can get pretty good, and I think I have something to share. And so as I started doing that, it all happened by accident, and people started to see it and resonate. And during the pandemic, I started writing more on LinkedIn and sharing my thoughts. And so I think when you put yourself out there, good things happen and people connect to that. So obviously it's really nice to be recognized. And I hesitated the first time sharing anything, but I share it because it's very important to me that other people see that and recognize, like, you should celebrate your own accomplishments. You should celebrate others, but you should absolutely celebrate your own accomplishments and be proud of yourself the way you would be proud of others. So I
I'm
am.
gonna I'm gonna have to learn that from you. Okay.
It's hard. Yeah, I
Yes.
just learned like yesterday.
Yes.
So
I have to do that, absolutely. And there is a typical question that normally is an evergreen, I would say. Okay. Uh, but I think this question you already answered, because it's about pride, and it's about what do you think you're proud of in your career. But I think you just answered, right?
no, that's not what I'm most proud of. What I'm
Oh, okay.
most, yeah, no, that's
Okay, yeah,
not at
yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah. Okay, what
Yeah,
is it? What
no.
is it? Curious, curious.
So I'd say one of the things I'm most proud of is at the company I just left, who I'm still working with, I had an opportunity to hire somebody from our accounting department in the beginning of 2020. She started April 1st, 2020. It was a brand new role. She had zero experience, but she had run her own business. She was kind and empathetic. And over the next 4 years, I worked with her, and now she went from being an assistant accounting manager to now she's the vice president of people at the company. And working with her and seeing her grow and
Yeah.
thrive and gain the she had to gain the practical knowledge, she had to learn more about the company, and she had to learn how to lead. And seeing her thrive is, first of all, I'm so super proud of her. And I'm also, proud of our relationship and how that ended up. And there's nothing I love more than being a small, tiny part of somebody's growth. And that's really what drives me.
That's a great story, and I totally agree. Yes, and sometimes when you're consulting with some companies and you give them some advice and they do it and it is successful, you
Yeah.
feel like, oh my God, it works.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. It's
works.
so
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah. Probably she called you and say, hey, these things work. So thank you, Tracy.
No, I know. I love it. I love it. And it's nice to have kind of a little peek into what she's still doing and to be able to help in a small way. That's really fun.
Yes, absolutely. So in this new adventure for me is curiosity is it's one of the big pillars. And what do you think is coming up in HR? I mean, trends or big innovation, and something that you have seen around that
Yeah.
really gets you like, oh my God, this is it. This is the next big thing. What do you think is the next big thing?
So it probably changes by the day, and I think that's why when I do presentations in the future of work, I do them like finalize the day before because new things are coming out all of the time. I think I think what the next big thing is probably different than, what HR is going to look like in a few years. I think the next big thing, which is what everybody's talking about, is generative AI and how that's going to change. And I had a conversation with somebody earlier today that still has their, um, turnover information on spreadsheets, and that's okay. Um, but I think I work a lot in the distribution manufacturing spaces, the spaces with deskless workers. That's my love and my passion. But I spend a ton of time with people in tech in the startup world. And I think people in that world tend to think that everything has moved forward and that everybody's adopted all this tech, and that is just not the case. It's not practical for a lot of companies and not affordable for a lot of companies, and so I'm that's part of what I do is trying to help them get there. um so I you know I'd like to say generative AI is the next big thing. Not every company is ready for it, not every HR leader is ready for it, um but we have to be, because it can really automate a lot of these day-to-day tasks that we're doing and have us focus on the strategic picture. Because I talk to so many HR leaders that I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time, and they don't. But if they take this bit of time to automate some of these things, then they're going to have the time to move the company forward. And some of them haven't had time for so long that they forgot how to do those things. And so
Yeah.
it's, that generative AI is going to be so important, particularly to those leaders in small to mid-sized companies, which is also the space that I play in. And in the next 5 or 10 years, I think HR won't be HR. It'll be called something different, universally, and it's going to look a lot different. I think it's going to look a lot different. It's going to look less like when I started and more like a business function. At least I hope, because it is a business function, and it's not a cost center.
That uh, that's so true. Now, from this question comes another question just popped on in my mind, which
Mm.
is there is one challenge. Okay, so this is what I see, and I want to confront myself with you. If I have to learn something, I need to put energy on learning.
Mm-hmm.
And energy on learning is a fatigue thing. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's hard, especially at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you think that people are lazy on wanting to do something new because they have to learn something new? So there is a real not being tech, or it's just sometimes it looks like you're just lazy. You don't, I mean, you have to go, you go home, I go home, and we open up YouTube or whatever, and we do podcasts, and we talk with people, and we read. And I see many people, they don't want to do that. So how can we do that? Because sometimes it's kind of this wall.
So this is going to be the first time I disagree with you because I don't think people are lazy. I think
Cool.
that we're not finding, or companies aren't finding a way to approach learning in a way that matches how they need to learn, right? And
Okay.
particularly we're seeing, um, don't get me wrong, there are some people who are lazy. So
Okay,
there are
thank you.
some,
Okay,
but
thank you. Some are
it's not
lazy.
like
Okay,
everybody.
guys
Yeah,
lazy.
there's no absolutes, right? And but I think it's less that, and it's more, is the way we do training going to resonate with this person, right? And is there a way, because everybody's got a different learning style, the younger generations that grew up with a phone in their hand and are watching TikTok all the time are consuming, they're learning. They're still, that's learning about whatever, but it's still
Yes.
learning. So they're consuming in a different way than maybe I did. So I can sit down and read a 100-page manual, um, not easily. Not that I
No, I
want to do
can't.
that, but I can
I
do
don't.
that, right? I could do that.
Yes,
I don't
probably.
want to do that, but I could do that. But some people can't, and we have to approach learning in a much different way,
Yes.
much different way, right?
Yes.
And so we need to break apart the traditional notion of what it means to learn and then put it back together in a way that is different for different kinds of people. The people
Oh,
who, not necessarily just generations, but different kinds of
yeah.
learners.
So, so now this is the next question comes from exactly what you just said. I mean, one advice. You have one young professional that wants, it's interested in HR and the words. One advice. What would be the advice that you give them?
For somebody who's interested in HR,
Yeah.
I actually had this happen the other day. My cousin reached out to me, and she's a lot younger than me, and is considering a career change and wants to get into HR. And what I told her was learn as much as you can, talk to as many people as you can, learn as much as you can, and just, it's very hard to break into HR. I think if you have a current company that you're working in and it's large enough and you can shadow or you can learn or work in an entry level role in HR, that's the best way in. But learn as much as you can. And also figure out if it's something you really want to do. I think sometimes people have an idea of HR as just helping people, and it's a little bit different, particularly the further you
Yes.
move into your career.
Yes. And in your career, and of course that you told me before something that I think is very true, which is the loneliness of leaders, or
Yeah.
loneliness. So the more you the more you climb the ladder of companies, HR, even
Yes.
very much high HR
Yeah.
people, they need to find a way to keep themselves motivated and kind of
Hmm.
inspire. I
Yeah,
know how I know
100%.
how I know how I do it. How do you do it?
Yeah, 100%. So the more you climb that ladder in HR, the less what you do looks like HR, and the more
Yeah.
it looks like general business. And I think that's pretty shocking to people. I used to teach a course of more entry level HR leaders, and I would ask them at the beginning of the course, who wants to be a chief HR officer, chief people officer? Everybody's hands goes up, and then at the end, it was like, who wants to do it now? And it's significantly fewer people. So for me, that loneliness, yes, you don't have, you're keeping so much information that's so privileged, and it is a privilege to have that information. And it's often very burdensome. It's a lot. It's a lot for the person involved. It's a lot for the HR leader. You're carrying a lot. So for me, certainly my CEO, I had a great relationship with my last CEO, was actually a good sounding board, whether it be, and within our relationship or stepping outside as a peer. But for me, it's the community of other chief people officers and HR leaders, and I have lots of people who are not in HR who are a community as well. But I have a core group of people that every single day we bounce anonymize things off. But like, hey, I'm struggling with this, I'm not sure what to do, and somebody gets on the phone with you, or hey, I just need to vent that this happened, and it's a very private, very smart group of people, and I don't ever feel lonely because there's always somewhere to go.
All right,
And I can't always say that. Yeah, I can't always say that.
that,
I
that's
used
really
to.
good.
Yeah.
That's a good advice for everybody. So
Yeah. Have
find a
your
way.
people.
Yes, find people.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I know myself very well. Self awareness stuff. But when I was very young, and still now, we all have our preferred book, author, resource. And I'm curious, do you have some resource that bought book? Let's talk about the book.
Yeah.
What would I'll give you? You give me your one of yours. I'll give you one of mine. Okay.
Okay. This is not going to be what you expect. I guarantee you this is not going to be what you expect, because I think there are a lot of great business books out there and there's a lot of great advice. Um, but everybody recommends some things, and they tend to flow through some similar authors, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of things. One of them is a book by a woman who became a friend through her writing the book, and me, getting to read it in advance, called, her name's Melissa Doman, and she wrote a book called Mental Health at Work and How to Talk About It. So I think for me, that was a taboo subject for most of my career. So that book has been really transformative in helping me have those really tough conversations. And then the other thing I recommend is read fiction.
Oh,
Shut your mind off at night
oh,
and read
oh.
fiction. And I recommend, there are some authors that I love. I love mystery books by Lisa Jewell. I love, STEM romance novels by Ellie Hazelwood. Like that's what I tend to do. I need to shut my brain off
Oh
and read
yes.
something that's not
Hey,
business.
Tracy. I mean, I am a
Oh,
big sci-fi saga fan, and right
yeah.
now I am at the 17th book of a saga, but I don't read.
Oh,
I listen. Long time
that's reading.
ago,
Different kind of way to read.
long time ago, I found no time for reading anymore, but I found a
Mhm.
lot of time for listening, audiobook, and I started
Yep.
audiobook when audible.com was not audible.com, so I started out like 20 years ago. And
Yep.
just today, the audiobook told me that I reached the 250 audiobook read. Yes, that's a big thing.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow. I do Audible too. I love Audible. So I
I
listen
love
to audiobooks
audiobooks.
in the car.
I
Yep.
just love them because they give you the path. And by the way, for my English is it's good to keep
Right.
in shape
Yeah. No,
because
that's
some
great.
because sometimes I mix up the languages. So as you know, and yes, but my book that changed my life was from Dr. Sapolsky, Why
Mhm.
Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, which is a
Hmm.
neuroscientific approach of stress. So I am. I've studied neuroscience for a long time, and that book told me you can't stress in your daily life because you're going to
Mm.
die. That's the book. Okay, so and you
Yeah.
were like, you was like, I was like, oh my god, okay, this is a big genius,
Yeah.
a fantastic genetist, and he says I'm an engineer, so it's like that makes sense to me, and that started my path through a totally different kind of life, totally different kind of life.
Did it help you transform how you how you took in information and change your stress levels? Did it help you in that way?
I have no stress level left. I don't
That's
stress.
amazing. That's
Zero stress.
amazing.
I don't produce
Yeah.
cortisol. I learned I
Wow.
taught my body not to produce cortisol, and when I start to produce cortisol, I know what to do. But then
Mm,
it took a while, okay? But
yeah.
it's amazing. All right, so
Wow.
before we wrap up, because I promised it was like 45 minutes, and
Yep.
really 45 minutes already. Oh my God.
It went fast.
That's
You
what
have to
happens
send me
when
that
two
book.
speakers are talking. They love to speak.
I know.
That's the thing. So
Well, I need the name of the book, so you'll have to email me the name of the book
I
because that
will.
sounds like must read for HR leaders.
I will, absolutely, and we can talk about that later.
Okay.
So, before we wrap up, what's the one key takeaway? Let's do the takeaway for our listener from our
Okay.
chat today. Listeners, takeaway from Tracie Sponenberg.
Oh, you want me to give one
Yeah,
key takeaway?
yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. So I think, and you touched on this in the beginning and kind of throughout, right? Get curious. That's curiosity is foundational to everything I do, and ask a lot of questions. So that goes along with curiosity, right? But get curious about everything, but especially get curious about your people, and you'll learn so much.
All right, all right, all right. So, thanks so much for joining us, Tracie. It's been a blast having you and talking. We have to do this again. Absolutely.
We do.
Or
This is fun. Thank you.
this is absolutely fun. We will do it again. So, to our listener, thank
Great.
you for listening to the Liquid Minds podcast. And until next episode, bye bye.